Hi, good evening, everyone. Actually, an early good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for our next session of Meet with Digital Thinkers. We have had successful sessions in the past, and wherein we showcase stories of digital leaders transforming businesses using technology. And today we bring to you another digital leader who will actually, it will be interesting to hear from in terms of how, modernization on cloud helped him make his company more future ready. So before we actually move on to our speakers today, I want to just take a few minutes to set the context. We all know that moving towards the digital economy, it is fundamentally altering the way businesses operate, and organizations are reimagining all aspects of the business, whether it is how they manufacture, their supply chain and distribution networks, or how they service. It is also changing the way they interact with their customers as well as the rest of the ecosystem of employees and partners. Legacy IT that actually lacks the agility is one of the largest barriers to the innovation and transformation that this digital economy requires, and it stands in the way of future readiness. So organizations need to start their journey towards become future ready with modernization, and a key pillar and the underpinning foundation of that is cloud. With the speed, agility, and performance that it delivers. And today, more than ever, these key metrics are at the center of the growth and recovery that organizations are working towards amidst the uncertainty. Because how fast and how well they recover will be determined by the ability to be agile and quickly respond to the dynamically changing requirements. So, like I mentioned, I promised, let's see how a company's need for modernization led it to cloud. The company that I'm talking about here is VWO, a company that helps deliver great digital experiences to businesses across the entire customer journey and helps them improve key business metrics through its VWO experience optimization platform. Now, while VWO promises to help businesses build great digital experience, what helps the company deliver on that promise is actually cloud. And to talk about how cloud helped the software company undertake rapid modernization to create a highly scalable and available architecture that is future ready, I have with me Ankit Jain, Vice President, Product and Engineering, VWO. Ankit has been associated with the company since 2011. In fact, he joined the team as the first engineer, and today he leads a team of over 60 people. He loves solving problems and building solutions with scale while using minimum technology. So it'll be great to hear from you, Ankit, and to take the discussion forward with Ankit and to understand VWO's cloud journey. I would like to invite Deepak Ajmani, Country Head Corporate Business, Google Cloud India. Deepak is a part of the executive leadership team at Google Cloud India, and his team at Google engages with customers and partners to increase market awareness and ensure customer success on Google Cloud. Deepak is an industry veteran with over 22 years of experience in leading and scaling business unit at companies such as Oracle Corporation and Dell EMC. So welcome, Ankit. Thank you so much for taking our time today to join us, and thank you, Deepak. Before I hand it over to you, Deepak, I would request all our delegates who are watching this webcast, please feel free to ask any questions. You can type your questions in the question box that is there on your screen, and we will take the questions towards the end of the session during the Q&A session. So thank you so much. So over to you, Deepak, to take this forward.
Thank you so much, Shipra. Such a pleasure talking to you again. And I welcome Ankit to this series of the Fireside Chat. Before I even get started and set the context about how cloud has actually been an enabler in your transformation, Ankit, what would be interesting to know from you would be a little bit of a glimpse on how VWO really started, a little bit about the company's evolution and the growth story.
Sure, and thank you, Deepak, and thank you, Shipra, for giving this audience a chance and me a chance to showcase what VWO has done and how Google Cloud has helped us take this journey ahead. So, Deepak, to your question, right? So, VWO started back in 2010, and at that point of time, if people are aware what A/B testing is, it was mostly a publication sort of a thing. It was a pharmaceutical practice where you would have a control group where you will give a placebo or a medicine to a certain section of people, and then you will actually have this sort of a comparison study. I think most of us know it's going on today as well with the corona and vaccines which are being developed. It's a standard practice which is established to know efficacy of something, right? Similarly, for websites, there is this, I'll say, a way of determining whether something which you have on your website is the best outcome which you could have, right? And generally, there would be people who could say that I know what's the best, but we let the data speak, and that is where this sort of thing started back in 2010, where we started looking at all these publications. If they work for pharmaceutical, what if we bring it to the power of web? And at that point of time, I'll say there were a couple of tools which were doing so. There was an Adobe product as well as an Google product back then, but they were really, really hard to use. I can imagine in 2010, we were using Dreamweaver and whatnot to construct our pages, edit them. But these products allowed you to do so by a lot of code on the backend. Now, Paras, our founder, he thought of this idea really and thought, what if I could bring the power of editing of websites really in the hands of marketers and not engineers? So how would you do that then, right? Make it as easy as editing a presentation, make it a website which is editable by anybody. And that is how it all started. And we created the world's first A/B testing tool, which allowed website owners to edit it without any need of engineering help. And that really gave us that kickstart, and we took it out where people just loved the product because of its ease and the power it inherently had, wherein the data started speaking for itself. So this is how our journey started in 2010. And with 3 people, now to 250 plus, and we are in Delhi, and our offices are in Delhi itself. But now with COVID, obviously, we are moving remote first, and that's an announcement which we made some time back. But yes, we are 250 plus company now and have evolved from where we started, which was just, let's say, A/B testing or experimentation, now to a completely structured based platform, which is allowing you to do a complete experience optimization for your users and visitors. And that encompasses testing and as well as having a lot of other things which help you around generating ideas for these testing, which includes things like session replays, engaging with your customers using push notifications, and a lot of other things, which I'm sure you guys can find on our website. But that has been our journey. To give you a quick context, Deepak, how it started, it actually started from a single server. As you can imagine, somebody, a founder starting it and starting it with a one node, which we bought on a Linode. A Linode was the offering back then. And now to multiple regions on Google Cloud across the globe, because we have our customers in 90 plus countries and their visitors could be absolutely anywhere in this world, right? So to serve all of them with very, very less latency, around 50 milliseconds, it takes a job wherein we have to be distributed, massively distributed, and do this task really well. So that's a brief journey. I'll say a very quick intro to the journey. But yes, it started in 2010 and here we are in 2020 and we just celebrated our 10 years.
And that's awesome. Congratulations on that. It's a very impressive journey. I've been following you guys very, very closely, and what we've seen you develop and again, much bigger infra to support the growing customer needs has been just phenomenal. And again, I think 250 people, I think that's a substantial organization that you're building for your customers. So Ankit, as we move towards a digital first economy, right, organizations look to build extraordinary digital experiences, and that's the business that you are in, where even a millisecond lag can hurt your customer's business. Now, what were the challenges you were facing around meeting your growing customer expectations with legacy systems, and how did they present a roadblock to your future growth? Can you share some examples of that for the benefit of our audience?
Sure, Deepak. So if you look at any of these standards which have been set by some of the prominent studies, one is back in 2010 when Amazon did this study that any latency which was added, like 100 millisecond latency, actually resulted into a 1% drop in sales. And that is around $300 million back in 2010. In 2017, Akamai did this study again, and they found out it is like now actually impacting 6% of sales with a 100 millisecond drop, because people don't have that much amount of patience. Obviously, internet has become faster. You are experienced to have a faster experience across the internet, and which is why you need to have that sort of thing where things just load for you, right? And we being there on every of the website where our customers are, right, we could impact their website speed, we could impact how their businesses grow, and we could impact actually their sales, because if we added any latency, as we just discussed, right, we could have led to a drop in their sales, let go the A/B testing, which would have let them improve it. Now, this was the basis on how we started, and we came out with the industry's first asynchronous version of A/B testing, which was not known to anybody in 2011. And people felt it is not something possible. We just made it possible. But that's only half part of the story, right? We can keep on improving the technology, but how do you deliver these fast experiences across the globe is what matters most, because my customers could be in 90 plus countries, but as I said, their visitors are across the globe. Now, how to keep that benchmarks for them, which they have for their own websites, at par with or without VWO? This resulted into adopting some of the latest technologies which we now use. Earlier, what we had to do to enable our customers have this sort of a performance was to move to a DNS service, which allowed us to geolocate a user and serve from the nearest server from this particular user, right? What essentially it means is, if you look at any CDN network, what it gives you a benefit is it will allow you to download stuff like images, videos from a nearest edge to your location, or a nearest pop from your location, which reduces the latency by the nature of geo distance, because internet cannot go faster than the speed of light, right? So if I'm in India and if I'm requesting something from US servers, it will at least take 300 milliseconds for a round trip to happen. Now, CDN servers made it possible, made it faster, and they had their edge nodes, let's say in Delhi, Mumbai, and allowed people to have faster experiences. But in our case, since A/B testing is so dynamic, we cannot have a standard CDN working for us. So it's not like we are serving an image. We need to send responses which are personalized for each and every website visitor. What that meant is we couldn't leverage any of the existing CDNs which existed back then. So we had to develop our own dynamic CDN, as we call it, which is potentially serving more than 40,000 requests per second across the globe. And each response is different, even if the request URL is the same. So that is how it is powered. And what it allows us to do is do all of it in a really fast way, because we were able to use the DNS-based routing earlier. But it had a challenge, right? DNS means DNS doesn't know whether the server is up or not. DNS doesn't know whether the server is overloaded, because DNS and a server are not talking to each other. But with Google Cloud and the global load balancer, which we now have with us, we have a single IP. It's an Anycast network. By the nature of it, it's geo-distributed. And this amazing Google load balancer with its premium networking, which we get, we're able to now actually reduce this time by even 40% by just moving to Google load balancer. And this is a really, really big change for us and our customers, because it directly impacts the sales, as we discussed, right? 100 millisecond, 6% drop. Now, Google Load Balancer played this pivotal role of doing so, and we do around 240 terabytes a month of outgoing bandwidth through load balancers today. With auto scaling, making sure that the right nodes are up at the right time, and all of those functionalities are so easier now. Earlier, we had to provision bare metals, request for servers, which would take 4 to 6 hours to get one, right? And then work with that sort of increased load. But now it's like click and or auto scale. So it's all there now. And that would be my take on how our lives have changed, kind of, when it comes to the global load balancers, and the distribution network which we have established, which is the core crux of how we power websites.
Got it. Thanks, Ankit. Again, I think you've sort of already sold Google Cloud there, right? Really, because I think the question was more to do with the cloud journey, but I think it's very evident how you are leveraging the power of cloud to power the business, to ensure that your customers are getting the satisfaction that they need, the kind of query speeds, the kind of again, I think the loads you're managing on a monthly basis is just tremendous. So Ankit, during this entire journey that you moved to cloud, and obviously you evaluated Google Cloud as well for multiple aspects, what kind of changes did you have to go through? Where were the improvements that you needed to address? So again, just walk us through the journey of the transition to Google Cloud so that customers like you can be inspired by how easy, how difficult, how much handholding was required for you to make that change. I think those kind of questions would be in the top of mind of the audience today.
Sure, Deepak. I think as a company, you need to first decide what are the major pain points, right? Because moving your infrastructure is not an easy job. There is something which is running. You don't want to disrupt your business. You don't want to cause any issues with your existing customers. And still, you need to always grow and move towards something which could help you grow faster in future, right? For us, it was not really a problem of scale, to be honest, while we were on bare metal machines with Software, which is an IBM-owned company now. It really worked well for us, like for 8 years. Uh, Obviously, there would be challenges around provisioning time, over provisioning. All of those were there, but we had learned how to live with it, right? We had made our own processes around it. But if we look at today's world, right, we hire, let's say, a lot of freshers from colleges. We hire a lot of people across India. Now, there is this aspiration of working with some of the latest technologies, generally with engineers. And if I ask an engineer whether he'll like to work on a cloud or a bare metal, where he has to configure that Linux and do almost everything, I'm sure the answer would be cloud. So one was the motivation factor for the team and upskilling the team, which we had, so that they also can see the power of what we can do more with cloud. Second was we were spending a lot of time in maintaining this hardware, because with bare metal, what it meant is there was every time we had this sort of provisioning. How much do we provision for the hard disk? How much RAM? How much CPU? And what if there's sudden increase in load? What we will do then? And almost every time, engineers as well as the DevOps team had to brainstorm it together, and they were focusing a lot more on the infrastructure versus the software or the code which they could write within the same time to have much more and many more features for our customers. So that was the second pain point, if I call it, for our teams, right? Now, this meant that if we move to a certain thing, obviously there is so much baggage which we would have collected in the past 8-9 years working on bare metals. How do we transition? There is definitely a way which some of the cloud partners would tell, that's called lift and shift. I think that's a terminology which a lot of people use, which means that you take your existing infrastructure and you just directly move it as one is to one sort of a mapping to a cloud. But for me, since I was not facing those issues, that if I have to do so, why even do that step? Because it's just bare metal versus VMs. If I'm doing so, there is no advantage, and team would not be kicked, right, to do that sort of a transition. So we also took the step of modernization of architecture while doing this transition. And that is the story which I felt was unique in our case, that our servers are global. We have our population, which is global in terms of usage. So there was no time where our servers could really cool off, right? So we had 24 hours in the day, and at all times, they are running at their peak. So how do we migrate it without causing any downtime to our customers, without taking any maintenance windows, plus making sure that the architecture is modernized during this transition? So we started back, I'll say around 6 months back before this transition, started learning how different cloud technologies have evolved. Because since our focus was directly on bare metals, we were looking in that direction. But once we started looking into cloud, we wanted to take a decision which was much more balanced on what providers are there and what do they provide. So we did POCs with almost all the major cloud partners. And there was a need to also build a new data warehouse on our side, which would power our product. So we had that as a POC for any of the cloud partners to work with and see how it fared with their systems and technologies. Um, Luckily, with the group there at Google Cloud who was helping us at that time, we had a successful POC. We also actually got to talk to some of the uh, people there at Google Mountain View who helped us discover what we could use, because Google had this background of Google Analytics and building large scale systems themselves. So they really helped us to understand how certain technologies could really work well in our favor. And that really meant that we had this engineers to engineers sort of a connect while we were working, instead of engineers versus sales, right? You can imagine a technology versus sales sort of a relationship versus technology to technology. And that is what just made us believe that this would be the right step. And then we started transitioning by picking our own things which we had, thinking how we would modernize each of them one by one. And then once we were ready with all the scope, all the documentation on our side, we started migrating. And within a period of 1.5 months, we were able to migrate all our servers from where we were to Google Cloud. And we didn't actually take any maintenance windows or downtimes during this migration. And this was the journey which we did. And this was 2020, just before COVID kicked in. So, lucky there. I'm not sure how feasible it would be working remotely, but those times in office really helped. Uh, but I think once you make up your mind, what you just need to do is make sure you build a plan which is both ways, migrate and unmigrate if there are certain things which don't go really well, and prepare a plan beforehand and have those sort of belief why you are doing this change and how it's going to benefit you in future. Once you have that sorted, I'm sure that push would be within, and then you'll be able to do so. And you have the support of experienced people who have done these migrations for tens and hundreds of other people across the industry. So you'll always have their support. We had the support of Nivea's team, Google Cloud people, and they were always there available. And we learned a lot about things like Kubernetes from people who are actually working on Kubernetes, the product managers and the developers themselves. So we had that connect with these people, which really helped our team to gain that confidence. And I think that was instrumental in doing this sort of a transition with confidence, is what I'll say, Deepak.
No, that's great, Amit. Ankit, sorry. Thank you for that context. And I think there's been just a whole lot of, talk that we're getting from customers. Even during COVID times, we're seeing a lot of customers actually undertaking a lot of cloud migration. And we feel that, as much support that you are getting during the time when COVID wasn't there, I think we are now seeing a whole lot of uptake for customers doing digital transformations. So I think very similar sort of experiences in terms of the hand-holding from engineers, hand-holding from partners is now coming into play, Ankit. So I think it's very, very relevant even in these times. But having said that, what I really, really liked about was the fact that as you were scaling your architecture towards cloud, you were also looking at modernizing your architecture. You're also looking at implementing new technology. So it wasn't just a simple lift and shift. It was actually lift and improve. And that's the new parlance that we have in the industry, right? That how can you lift your current monolithic application and then move it onto the cloud with a modernized architecture. So it's a great example of a lift and improve. Now, having said that, you've spoken a lot about the technical metrics that we are measuring today. How are you stretching and how are you measuring the success of your business metrics? I think one business metric you spoke about was, how a downtime can impact sales. But when you use cloud, what kind of business metrics have seen an uptick from your standpoint?
So, Deepak, it has been 5 months, almost 5 months since we have moved. So the major difference is what we see is overall responsiveness of the systems, right? And while we might say that things are not directly measurable and sometimes, but that frustration which might just creep in, right? If you are working with a system which is not as responsive or is slow at times or is not working really well when you want it to work, right? Those are instances where the customers might not even tell you at most of the times, right? They'll keep on having that feeling that it's not working out. And suddenly then you'll get a request for cancellation sometime, because ours is a SaaS business, right? We are not shipping software to them. They are using this software through the web interfaces, and they need to make it work at times when they want to use it. That's how it is, right? And this is the biggest factor where we see that since the migration, there has been zero incidents. And I'll say that we did have good uptime for the load balanced or the global system, which we had even earlier, because by nature of it, it was globally load balanced. But even for the application side, the response time has just become so much faster because we are now moved to technologies which are scaling automatically in a way, right? We are not really doing those manual tweaks to make it work faster. So moving to Kubernetes, right, it just gives an advantage from customers' perspective that they have a system which is always up. We don't have to worry about those things. On the internal side, the thing is that it's so much easier to now debug stuff or even find out what are those pain points because we get really good view of what is going on. And our journey has not really stopped there because we are still exploring how we can leverage some of the latest things. Things like service mesh, things like, I think it's part of Anthos now, but things which will help us to get much more visibility on which sections are not working as expected. And this is like a journey, right? So we'll keep on improving things. And from the customer's perspective, we see that we'll be able to offer them some of the functionalities now much faster. And that is the pace which we will be able to build at. Plus, there is another inherent benefit, which is around the disaster recovery, right? So the backups are so much now natural. Hopefully, we'll never get to use them. That's how we take it. But with bare metals, right, the problem was not everything can be backed up really easily. With cloud infrastructure, that becomes a piece of cake in a way, right? You have snapshots, you can just do that and restore them at any point of time. So the RTO, RPO concepts become so much crucial for our kind of business, and we'll be able to do much better now. Other thing is data locality. As you know, data privacy concerns are rising across the globe. India has its own data privacy law coming in. UK and Europe launched GDPR. California has the CCPA. So we have to confirm with all of these laws because the customers are in all of these countries and continents. So it makes it easier for us to think about having a data center, let's say, even in Europe, and have European data only in Europe data centers, and US can have its own data center in US. And maybe if India requires that sort of similar requirements, we'll be able to do so. So it's more future looking to me, Deepak, than the current KPIs. But all of these are important things which will impact directly if we are not prepared. And that is how I feel it will impact how VWO grows in future, because we'll not be limited by these laws. We'll be able to scale and we'll be able to deliver whenever there are these changes.
Okay. Thanks for that, Ankit. I think you've already answered the next question I was going to ask you, especially around the pandemic, because today, all focus for business today is pivoted around ensuring that there's business continuity amongst the uncertainty that has been created by this pandemic. So just some final thoughts in terms of how are we helping you maintain the entire business continuity, and how critical is cloud going to be for your future growth and stability, and what are the other new things that you intend to leverage from cloud going forward?
Sure, Deepak. I think from COVID's perspective, I think everybody is impacted today, and it's not just we getting lesser number of new sales, but it's also impacting how we collected revenue and how the contracts are now happening, because people are not ready to commit for a longer duration. And what this means is we can really scale our infrastructure up and down as required. And that is one of the biggest support, which I'll say is from the cloud itself, right? We don't have to pre-provision bigger machines, and we can have our expenses in check by leveraging these technologies. So we can configure the systems in a way that, yes, we are fine. We'll not go over this amount. While we know that we can take some steps back while not developing certain things which we might wanted to develop. So that gives us a flexibility on where we want and when we want, instead of provisioning those hardware and then keeping them running empty. That doesn't make sense, right? We can stop it at any point of time. It's a second billing. So there you go. You don't have to pay for it anymore. So these sort of changes really help us. Then there is support from the team. So we are now working remotely. Obviously, as a technology company, we didn't have a lot of customer face time anyways in our offices. But meeting people and having these conferences, I think, really help. And Google Next going on, it gives a good opportunity for our team to learn. And I think from that perspective, Google Cloud has been instrumental in making sure we are always learning, looking forward to the latest technologies, and keeping an eye on what can we do next is is something which we always have a visibility on. And while you asked what we all also need to, like, we also plan to use in future, I think there are certain exciting things coming on the ML and AI side on BigQuery. I saw there were certain updates about NLP being used to query BigQuery. I think these are interesting concepts, and we'll be having our complete data warehouse built over BigQuery, Dataflow, PubSub, and it will be launched very soon. This was the step which I was saying, that we had to take a step back. We didn't go aggressive on it as we were going earlier, but these are managed services, right? We don't have to pay if we are not using them. So that helped. There is no contract as such, and we can easily switch on and switch off these services when we want. So that is there. But along with that, yes, we are keeping an eye on how ML and AI progresses in these technologies and how we can build stuff which will be more powered by these technologies in future versus rewriting all the code. And I think I was talking to you before about those new advancements in AI, and keeping an eye on those things like GPT-3, which is coming out, how we can connect and leverage GPT-3 with, let's say, Google technologies and build a holistic, better solution is also what we'll look at. So yeah, these are the things, Deepak, which I had on this question for now. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely fantastic, Ankit. Thank you for sharing your experience of your growth, your business growth, how you've leveraged cloud to overcome some of the legacy challenges that many customers have. This whole aspect of how you've been able to do the transition seamlessly without any downtime, leveraging engineer to engineer connect. All of these are really positive indicators of how companies like you are leveraging the power of cloud. And again, going forward from a business continuity, from a customer satisfaction standpoint, leveraging technologies that can definitely add more value, be it in terms of response times, be it in terms of an uptime, be it in terms of machine learning capabilities. I think all of these are very, very positive indicators. And Ankit, thank you so much for being such a big champion for Google Cloud. And I'm just so glad to see how you've been able to grow and inspiring other companies like you to grow as well. So with that, thank you, Ankit. I'm going to pass this back to Shikra for the next section of our presentation today.
Thank you, Deepak, and a nice chatting with you on these topics. And I'm sure people would have some insights. And if there are any questions, I'll ask people to feel free to ask me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ankit and Deepak, for really bringing across the sense of what real business transformation that cloud can help achieve. And Ankit, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us so candidly, the experiences you shared, taking us through your modernization journey, leveraging cloud. This will be a huge learning experience for the delegates to take back with them and apply as they prepare to make their organizations more future ready. And most importantly, I want to highlight the key aspect that you shared about the human element of freeing up manpower from regular maintenance to focus on coding and upskilling, which is particularly relevant as skill gaps is one area that organizations are constantly battling with. And secondly, from employee satisfaction point of view also, I think this is very critical. So thank you for actually highlighting this very, often ignored but very critical aspect. And thanks, Deepak, for that wonderful and enlightening discussion and really bringing out the essence of VWO's cloud journey. And, I think this discussion really made it very, very clear that, cloud is a key pillar in organizations' transformation journey. Thank you so much, Ankit, for your time today. Very grateful to you for sharing your journey with us. so candidly, and it will be a great learning experience for everyone, for all of the delegates who have joined us for today's session. Thanks to all the delegates who have joined us today in the middle of the day. We are one day away from the weekend, so I won't say happy weekend, but yes, do have a great day ahead. And we are close to the weekend, so not much pressure on everyone, I hope. So enjoy your day, and thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.